This week in your face pollution, retro electric cars, and spaceships roasting coffee. This is the sight lots of cities across the world wake up to every morning. Pollution well over the safe limits. We now know this is killing more people than smoking. This week, the ultra-low emission zone launches in London. It hopes to keep the worst polluters off the streets. But whether a £12.50 surcharge will actually stop enough people using their vehicles is, some might say, questionable.
It's a beautiful day in London today, and right now pollution levels aren't too high. But come rush hour, the story changes.
This goes beyond the busy roads too. London's deepest tube stations, a new study suggests, can be 30 times more polluted. At London Marylebone, a new air filtering system is trying to tackle the problem.
Well, I wouldn't usually be standing this close to a fan blowing air in my face, but apparently this is giving me the cleanest air in the station.
Behind this advertising board is a contraption containing a nanocarbon filter capable of removing over 90% of harmful gases from the environment. The devices are deliberately positioned alongside the shops and waiting areas where most passengers spend their time. This map shows how the quality of the air is improved significantly where the filters are.
The polluted air is being sucked in through the top of the unit, enters into a chamber in which there is a high voltage electrical field where the ultrafine particles are being captured. The second stage is then a gas filter where we take out the nitrogen dioxide, we take out eventual ozone that is produced in the first chamber. And then the last chamber is basically to direct the airflow going out to get the clean air in the right place.
But it's not just London. Last year, 40 cities across the UK either reached or exceeded the safe limit for air quality.
And some have their own plans to better the air. In Southampton, this bus is claiming to clean the air as it drives. The filter on the roof removes the ultrafine particles from the air that diesel engines on vehicles like these are spewing out.
And basically, there are two large filter slabs in the unit. There are three fans that suck air in. The bus doesn't go fast enough to get enough air in, so we need three fans that are driven by electricity. They suck air in, the air passes through the filter on the roof of the bus and then comes out much cleaner when it comes out the other end.
And the hope is it could do a lot more than clean up its own act. If the city's 5,000 buses had these filters, they could in theory clean the entire city's air twice over, up to a height of 10 metres at least.
I suspect there are quite a lot of cities that might be interested in looking at this sort of technology, and if it's on a bus it could be on a refuse vehicle, it could be on a delivery lorry, it could be on all sorts of things.
Now, we don't just need to keep things running with low emissions. Keeping things running at all can be a challenge. Imagine the chaos if these traffic lights went down. Now imagine if the whole system went down due to a cyber attack. But it's not just about transport networks. It's also large factories or power stations which have already fallen victim to these type of attacks.
And Dan Simmons has been shown some new research which suggests our infrastructure may be a lot more vulnerable than we previously thought.
The Ukrainian example was presumably done by a nation-state actor, and there they were actually able to successfully turn off the lights in a neighborhood. And that to my mind shows just how severe the consequences are.
Eitan Goldstein has been helping secure the energy and utilities sectors for almost 10 years.
You may want to disrupt oil and gas markets, right? The Saudi example was the more recent of the two, and that was one where presumably a nation-state actor was specifically targeting safety systems in oil and gas refineries. And so there the assumption, the implication was that they were actually trying to cause physical harm. And that one was really scary because they were directly going after the safety systems.
So where does it all begin for the countries or criminals behind such attacks? Today, Eitan's offered to show me a tool called Shodan.
Shodan specifically tells me what devices are open-facing to the internet, right? And so what that tells me is there's part of my attack surface, my cyber exposure out there that probably shouldn't be there, and particularly if it's industrial control systems. And helps me then start to prioritize where I'm exposed and what I need to do to start to reduce risk.
We're searching for these individual bits of kit that control the big industrial systems. They're called Programmable Logic Controllers, or PLCs, and if you're running a water plant, power station or factory, for example, you don't want just anyone fiddling with them.
We know that there's now 6,000 of these PLCs connected to the internet.
And this is a real-time
This
result.
is real-time, and they should never be connected to the open internet like that.
So there's over 5,000 mistakes being made at the moment.
There's many more than that. This is just the tip
But
of the
these are just the
iceberg.
ones that we can find now. And look, this is a list of the countries where they're located. Is that
Yeah, and so the power of the tool is the ability to click down. So look, there's nearly 1,000 of these in Germany.
right?
So let's pull that up here. And what this will start to do is give us some more information on the specific devices, the companies, where exactly they are. And as you can see here, just to give you a sense, you've got a wide range of leading German companies, smaller manufacturing firms. What we're finding here is that industrial control systems are vulnerable everywhere. It's a risk for everyone. It's part of your cyber exposure for everyone.
Now, many of the control systems and infrastructure are old and don't get a software update that often, which is one reason to keep them offline. But increasingly, we're connecting more devices to the workplace, so the opportunities for an attack go up. This week, an independent report conducted by a specialist research agency suggests a far worse picture than previously thought. 9 out of 10 of the 700 security professionals working in critical infrastructure that took part in the survey commissioned by Tenable said their workplace had suffered damage as a result of at least one successful cyber attack in the last 2 years. But does it mean systems also went down?
If you look at healthcare, oil and gas, utilities, transportation, roughly half of them in the last 2 years have experienced some sort of attack or breach around their industrial control systems that has led to a shutdown.
Now, I think it's fair to say that you have to take this report with a pinch of reality, because the experts that responded did so possibly because they had something to say. So you might expect the figures to be a little bit higher than perhaps what is truly the case. But even allowing for an adjustment for that, this report paints a very different picture to the everything's okay scenario that the public might be persuaded to believe. Underreporting of cyber attacks against critical infrastructure is commonplace, and it's not just to protect reputations. It's in order to keep the confidence of us, the public, in the services provided to us all around us every day. The anonymity provided to the workers who responded to this, not the CEOs or the bosses, may also have loosened some tongues.
Back at the board, and we've narrowed our search to one particular programmable logic controller that's known to have security problems.
What I've been able to do is find this device with a known vulnerability found by Tenable.
Surely nobody would leave these connected to the internet.
And you've even sort of got a GPS
Yeah,
location
you
for
can
it.
find it on the map. And so what I'm able to do now, and again remotely, is click into that device, and I can remotely change the password.
It's not just this one company. Shodan delivers up dozens of potential targets for us, including a major telecoms provider in the UK, Germany, and in this scan, Romania. Shodan and Tenable help companies find where their vulnerabilities are. But are organisations doing enough to protect us? And could this happen again?
Absent electricity, some very core functioning goes down. You don't want to need medical care should that happen, for example. And so the consequences can indeed be quite severe. As to the motivations of the attackers, I don't know, but certainly nothing good, right? It's a way to almost disable a modern functional society.
What do you believe is the probability of an attack on that scale in the United Kingdom? Successful.
On that scale, quite low. You know, and I think it's important not to fearmonger like that, right? You know, the risk is real. The vulnerabilities are real. The cyber exposure is growing. There is that gap that you and I talked about earlier. But that doesn't mean the lights are going out in London next week. And I think we should be really sober about the risk. You don't need to exaggerate it in order to address it.
And if they do go out, if this program goes out after such an attack?
And I was wrong. I trust you'll edit thoroughly.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week that Google finally shut down its failed social network, Google+. Tesla was fined for violating laws on hazardous waste storage at its California factory. And Toyota announced it will offer free access to its hybrid technology patents till 2030 to encourage a transition to fully electric cars. The clearing of a backlog of marijuana possession convictions in California will be helped along by artificial intelligence. An algorithm designed by nonprofit company Code for America will determine if cases are eligible for dismissal or resentencing. It will help clear 54,000 convictions. Recreational use of marijuana was legalized in the state in 2016. NASA is warning a satellite shot down by India is at risk of endangering the International Space Station. Calling the destruction a terrible, terrible thing, NASA's chief said of 400 pieces of orbital debris created, 24 posed a potential risk to the astronauts on the station. A woman carrying 2 Chinese passports, multiple phones, and a thumb drive with malware was arrested at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. The woman told police she was at the club to use the swimming pool before changing her story to say she was there for a United Nations event. The 32-year-old woman was removed and charged with making false statements to a federal officer and illegally entering a restricted area. And finally, do you fancy working alongside this? Boston Dynamics have shown how its gigantic handle robot could be put to use in a factory. Here it is, accurately moving boxes between pallets. These weigh about 5 kilos each, but the robot can lift up to 15 kilos. Terrifying and useful at the same time.
Obviously, an easy way of helping reduce pollution in the city is to encourage people to cycle more.
Dockless bike schemes that became popular in Asia have started popping up in cities across the UK over the past couple of years. Unlike the so-called Boris bikes, they don't require any infrastructure. Cycles can be left anywhere, anytime, and be picked up by another user. Whilst this may be okay in some countries, here people didn't find it quite so acceptable. So now a new crop of dockless schemes are hoping to keep everyone happy. I'm not much of a cyclist myself, so I needed a spot of help. Kitty Knowles has taken one of the brand new Beryl bikes for a spin before they hit the streets in the seaside town of Bournemouth and here in East London.
Well, Kitty, you've been getting the exercise today. What's different about this one?
Well, this one has a tracker in it, which means it's always connected and it should be easier for you to find.
The cycles are designed by the same company that put the green lights on Transport for London bikes. And now it's using the same tech to reimagine how dockless bikes could work in UK cities. Its always-on tracker gets its juice from your pedal power and a solar panel neatly placed in its basket. The marked areas pretty much provide the virtual version of the docks, and cyclists are encouraged to leave their bikes in them.
So users will be incentivised to park the bike in a Beryl bay, but you can also have the freedom to park it wherever you wish, but you'll be paying a small premium to do that. And then other users are incentivised to collect that bike if it's left outside of a bay and park it into a Beryl bay.
And on the plus side, if a bay turns out to be the wrong size or in the wrong place, you could always just paint another line somewhere else. No need to rip out expensive infrastructure. But if working up a sweat isn't your thing, no need to give up on your cycling dreams. California-based electric bike-sharing company Lime hit the streets of London back in November. Instead of the designated bays, it encourages users to cycle and park responsibly. Well, it may not work every time, but the company says tipped-over bikes send out distress signals to the maintenance team. Hopefully they'll come to the rescue. But electric comfort comes at a cost. A 20-minute journey will set you back £4, whilst the same one costs just £1 on Beryl's top-up scheme. Whilst biking undoubtedly helps keep a city moving, it's hard to believe that on its own it'll be enough to keep us breathing.
We're starting to see some interesting things, I think, in the way that the road is shared. Some examples in cities in America where, rather than having bike lanes, we're starting to have slow speed lanes. So that rather than a bike lane where people think only bikes can use, it's a shared space that maybe e-scooters or other slower vehicles can share.
Certainly more and more journeys will start using electric power, including our cars. But not everyone wants to get rid of their old gas guzzlers. So Mark Chislak has been finding out how they could still be saved from the scrap heap.
When we think of electric cars, images of sleek, modern, almost silent automobiles spring to mind. Their interiors Spartan and stripped of buttons and switchgear, replaced with touchscreen and acres of space.
Discovering that this 1953 Morris Minor is in fact a fully electric car might come as a bit of a surprise then.
It's been converted from petrol to electric by the London Electric Car Company based here in Vauxhall.
This fine example of a vintage British automobile has had its fossil fuel drinking guts ripped out and replaced with an electric motor and batteries, a task which isn't as simple as I'm making it sound.
Matthew Quitter set up his company converting classic cars to electric back in 2017. Parked in his garage now is a range of customers' different old school cars, all being converted from Land Rovers to Lancias. As a result, Matthew has to figure out the best conversion solution for each individual car.
In a lot of cases, cars we're converting, they've never been converted before. So with electric Morris Minors, there's a handful of electric Morris Minors in the entire world. The Lancia Beta behind me, no one has ever converted one of those to electric. With each one, the first one is very much a customized, bespoke conversion. We're figuring out where batteries go, we're figuring out how we're going to mate the motor to the gearbox, where does the charger go, how much range can the car physically take. So for example, this Morris Minor, we've kept the gearbox, and in fact the entire conversion has been done in such a way that it could be converted back to petrol very easily if the owner so wished. You're getting 100 horsepower and 200 foot-pounds of torque.
That's terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
Comedian Jake Yapp's Morris Traveller is currently in the workshop undergoing conversion. The car itself is 55 years old, but the electric parts have been salvaged from a modern Nissan Leaf.
Well, I bought this car specifically to be electrified. I'd always wanted a Morris Minor, but I'd kind of grappled with the idea of it's very polluting. If I'm going to buy another car, it should probably be an electric car. I get very excited about getting the snazzy display, entertainment system, sat-nav unit from the original Nissan Leaf. I want that in there because just because it's an old car doesn't mean I don't enjoy toys. I'm really looking forward to going to like service stations on motorways and plugging it, going and driving in the bay for electric cars to charge and watching people looking at it all huffily. Kind of going, well, that's an electric charger. Oh wait, it is an electric car.
But just how practical is a car like this on London's congested roads? Matthew took me for a spin so I could experience it for myself.
So this car it does about a 40-mile range, and that's on the low side as far as electric cars are concerned. But we've done that to keep costs down. It's very much designed to be a city car. This is a 1953 Series 2 Morris Minor. Its top speed back in the day would have been about 55 miles an hour. And frankly, anything over about 45 miles an hour is petrifying. We're not wearing seatbelts because we don't have to, because the car built at that era wouldn't have had seatbelts in it, and so we're not obligated to install them. And so equally, anything over about 30 miles an hour is taking life into your own hands. You know, it's very quick off the light. It has 100 foot-pounds of torque, which is about 3 times what it would have originally had.
Which is one of the things that people expect about electrics,
yeah,
isn't it? They expect that there's that
Party
performance
trick.
there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we find that 40 miles is about a week's worth of driving in London.
So how long did it take to convert this car?
It took us about 6 months. Normally we'd estimate between 3 months and 6 months for a conversion based upon whether or not we've done it before and how complex the conversion is going to be.
How much are we talking about to do this?
At the moment we generally suggest a base figure of around £20,000, which is a lot more than we'd like it to be. And ideally we'd like to get to the point where you're looking at say £5,000 to convert a car.
Classic cars have several economic factors in their favour. They're road tax exempt, and classic car insurance is often very cheap. Electric motoring may be the future, but there isn't any reason why these cars can't have a flavour of the past.
Mark there. And if you thought that was a bit out there, well, Nick Queck has been to Dubai to meet someone with even more outlandish ideas.
A land famous for extravagant displays of wealth. Towering skyscrapers, gigantic indoor fish tanks, and next, coffee? Here at Raw Coffee in downtown Dubai, hipsters hang out sipping brews made from beans roasted on site. Patrons are charged a bit more for your regular Joe, sure, but the stuff hits the spot. Today though, I'm meeting an unconnected entrepreneur set on taking the traditional roasting process to new heights. Literally.
What about we could send coffee beans to space, and when they come back through the heat of the re-entry, we could harvest that heat and roast these coffee beans with.
So Hatem here thinks he'll load up a capsule with beans, strap it to a rocket, blast it into space, and as it plummets back down to Earth, beans inside a specially devised thermal chamber will roast them up, obviously. He and his partner Anders first had the idea while studying at the International Space University in Strasbourg.
Why we always are trying to stop this heat and prevent it, rather than we could use it and harvest it to do something with it.
So tell me more about this thermal chamber. How would that work exactly? And is this just hypothetical or is this real science?
Well, it's let's say real science in theory. Until we test it really through this coming year of 2019, they would be able to confirm that the design proposed and all the simulation we're doing is really matching the real data we're going to get from these tests.
Is there really a need to roast coffee beans in space?
I really hate the saying that we should not reinvent the wheel. I think that someone lazy have said this.
What's the current proposed cost per cup?
I mean,
Why are you laughing?
Because like for the last 2 weeks, we've heard a lot of speculation from other like scientists or even the articles that covered this in the media. Our goal would be to bring it to something around $40, $45 per cup.
There is no way I'm buying it for £35.
I know, for sure. Even if this whole project didn't work, for us the journey of inspiring and motivating people is the most important thing. It's not the end product, it's what's really going to come out as something on a side with this journey of making this product.
At 40 quid a pop, for many it's a price too bitter to swallow. But in this city of seriously expensive tastes, it could just be their cup of coffee.
That's it for this week. If you want to keep track of what the team are getting up to, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at BBC Click. Thanks for watching.